Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Factorio Bob's Angels. So we start the episode off having a quick review of current resources. There's a sapphirite patch up there, huge patch that we want to be working towards, and the Givolite patch pollution is barely licking the biters. But if you pause it right at the start there, I do go over each of the chests to review how much iron we've got. We've got about 4k buffering from the Givolite and Stereotype, which I leave for now to continue to buffer because we're not in desperate need of it, and we've still got Sapphirite coming through, so hopefully we should be alright there. So yeah, the premise for this, or the objective, sorry, for this episode is going to be plastics and working towards blue science packs. I don't think we'll get to blue science this episode, but we should get the materials together. So long as we don't get bothered by the biters too much, we can first focus on getting oil set up. So I've got the refineries and some stuff reduced prior to the start of the episode, just so I'm not spending too much of the time running about gathering resources. So we get the two only oil wells set up that we get at the starting area. Mining. This is going to be a temporary pipe. Once those wells get down to 1 oil, or down to 0.1 oil a second, I'll probably not bother with them, because that's going to be eventually the refining area, I think, or the bus is going to encroach there. I can't quite tell off the top of my head, but they're not going to really be worth mining once they're down to 0.1. So we get a couple of tanks set up on those. So we can try and clear those as quickly as possible, because later on they and the pipes feeding down here are going to get in the way, but they'll serve as a nice supply of oil to get us started, to get us going. So I want to produce this stuff as fast as I can, and I put in some temporary power poles as well. I don't really like having power poles running across the bus, but I do build a buffer on the bus at some point to get resources into the logistics system, and that'll be the only place where power crosses it, because I like to be able to drive up and down the bus, you know, without having to worry too much. But back up north, we set up some pipes to get the oil down here nice and quickly down to these tanks. I'll increase the oil storage down here later on, but we just get enough going now to have a little buffer while we set this area up. And we go for the old classic layout of the 3 stages being 3 levels out. And I think I start with 4 refineries, but I believe the ratio's 5 refineries. Then when we get to cracking, it's 5, 1 for light, 1 for heavy oil, 7 for light. Because this is essentially going to be entirely producing petroleum. We'll probably do a separate area for the acids. Can't remember the name of the basic form of it. But we get a lot of that from the Angels refining. And I know there's a lot of choices in refining in Bob's, and it's changed since I last played it, so yeah, I'll have to have a think about how I'm going to go about this late game, but at the moment we just want some plastic, so I don't really care. I set up a pretty basic setup. We're going to have to keep increasing tanks, and in fact I usually the very first thing I research is the more advanced oil processing, so we can get 100% of the soil transferred to petroleum, because we're going to need a lot of it. So I lay out some tanks, almost perfectly spaced out, but, you know, can't let these things bother you too much. Can't let your OCD rule you. And then I spend ages trying to find plastic in the menu. And then I get concerned that I haven't even researched it, but I have. It's right there, I've just seen it. I'm just being really stupid. And I finally find it. So yeah, the placement of this oil refinery area isn't where I'd normally have it. I'd have it at the start of the bus, south of where the smelting area would expand into. But due to the biters, it's just not really feasible, so I decided to place it down there, hopefully planning in for enough space for the bus, because the bus by the end is going to be huge. But if we do need to move it by then, we're going to have bots, so moving stuff with bots is pretty easy. And it's a pretty basic refining setup. It wouldn't take me long to move it at the moment, and I may still move it to where I would usually put it, which is quite far out of the way. Bring it in, you know, where it's needed. So we come down to start laying out the plastics. slightly different from vanilla. Instead of it being coal, you need some saltwater electrolysis to make hydrogen and chloride. We don't need the hydrogen for this bit, but we do need it for other processes later on. We just need the chloride for the plastic. So we start clearing trees and getting the area set up for that. Now, I'm probably spacing out for beacons a bit too much, and I get a bit carried away with it. And I've realised if I do it for absolutely everything and get way too carried away with it, this is going to start... Well, it's going to eventually run into where the Javolite is. I mean, it's pretty far away at the moment, but this sub-bus does get pretty long. With the addition of the greenhouses where they are, that's not where I'd normally put greenhouses. But where I normally put greenhouses isn't infinitely as expandable as the way I've done it for this, so... I think I prefer this method. It just needs a hell of a lot of space, and it's probably going to need some landfill, which isn't really an issue because we get a hell of a lot of stone from the angels ore sorting. So that's not going to be too much of a problem. In fact, it's going to be quite handy to use up some of the stone because I don't really want it to back up in loads of warehouses. I want to be using it. So we start to get the stuff placed out for saltwater electrolysis again, spacing for beacons, and the more I watch this and the more I do it, the more I think I'm going a bit overboard for spacing. But if we do hit the Javolite, we can just carry the bus on past it and carry on the sub-bus around it, because it is an infinite patch. We may even be able to use the trains to transport some stuff. If we have to get a load of stuff from one end of the base to the other, we can stick a train in and do it. Should be fairly easy with the rail network layout that I use. So yeah, we're just getting the buffer laid out for the hydrogen and an overflow valve, because I'll probably add some more tanks, but once that's full, you know, we're going to have loads of spare hydrogen lying around. And at the moment, we just take a cut off of the water that's being used for everything else. Now, I wouldn't normally have everything running off one pump, but at the moment, I just want to get everything running, and optimization can be done at a later date. It doesn't really need to be that much of a priority at the moment, so long as the layout is considering the fact that I'm going to, you know, change it for optimization in the future. Yeah, it doesn't really matter at the moment, so long as we get some on the bus. Because if we get this all set up this episode for Blue Science, we can get straight into it next episode and then start working on getting towards robots. So long as the biters don't bother us too much. I mean, we're doing pretty well at the moment, but the more and more pollution we produce, the more of a problem they're going to be. And of course, the more we run out of resources, the more we're going to have to push out as well. So I really want to get to that sapphirite patch up in the north, or there's three, I think, relatively near each other. So the fact that they're probably all going to be infinite patches means that's going to be pretty much all the sapphirite we're going to need, so long as the throughput is sufficient, which I believe it is going to be with the upgraded miners. That could be our main and only supply of sapphirite, which, if that's the case, that's going to be great. So we get the plastic onto the bus. That's now being produced. And we run that up along next to the carbon. I don't think I'd do 2 belts worth of carbon. I think we'll be alright. And we patch in the solder there, which I believe got damaged by some biters last episode, which I've only just noticed. And then I realised it clashes with the basic electronic circuit boards. So I have to take it back and get that moved down one row, which isn't too much of a problem. I believe I usually do 2 belts of plastic on the main bus, so we've spaced out accordingly for there to be 2 belts of plastic outputting from that row back down there. When I was spacing for beacons, I put an extra row for a second belt, which I'll put in later on. It's quite a late game. I think I need to do that, especially around launching rockets. You need a lot of plastic. Hence why I've left space for 3 belts of steel as well. We're going to need a hell of a lot of steel once we start launching rockets. And I finally decide to connect up the ore from the Stirotite and Javolite, but I haven't got enough resources to do so. So we head back to the temporary base, which is in its last days. I think we're going to be getting rid of this very soon. So we decided to disconnect the sapphire, because we should be doing all these things on the bus now. There's no reason why we're not doing belts and ammunition on the bus. And for some reason I stick a buffer. Oh yeah, it's because all the miners for the sapphire are all on the same side. And I kind of realise I don't really need to, as long as I get those second 3 outputting onto the opposite side of the belt. But yeah, we go and steal all the iron we can from the temporary base because we're running low, and we clear our inventory a tiny bit because it's just getting way too messy now. But we get some, I believe we're short of resources for loaders. Not going to use loaders everywhere, I'm going to use them where throughput's really needed. We also balance the belt for the sapphire there to get all miners running. And that sapphire patch is also in its last days. I also need a sip of water. I usually edit these sips out because my mouth gets very dry. My throat gets very sore. Talking for 20 minutes straight. I usually edit them out, but I might leave that one in. I don't know. Now I've spoken about it quite a bit. I'll probably have to, because one of the problems with it is it puts my viewing out of sync of the video, and I try and do it all as one take, but if I edit too much out, everything I'm talking about can get out of sync. So yeah, it's nice to talk about it though, because I've edited a lot of it out so far. So the next thing for Blue Science packs is, I forgot the name of it now, silicon wafers. Yeah, we need some wafers, which means getting this quartz down. So this is the first of the Bob's Ores to go onto the dedicated Bob's Ores bus that runs down the middle. I've done it slightly differently before. This usually runs in a weird way around the smelting, but this time I've planned with enough space in between smelting and the main bus to have this ran down the middle. Yeah, I think there's 2 extra belts spare in case we need more than 1 belt throughput of any particular ore. There's not much throughput from the sorting area through to the Bob's Ore storage, which is the warehouse I've just put in up to the north. But that sorting area is going to get completely rebuilt in the future. It's going to be flipped around so it'll be functioning in the opposite direction, and the station's going to be to the west of it. But I have that all planned out. I've checked there's enough space for me to do all that. So at the moment it's a temporary area, but very similar for the design I'm going for. It's just going to have all the flotation and everything in between. So we move the storage for the output of the stuff that looks like cocaine. I can't remember the proper name for it, but yeah, we have to stockpile quite a lot of that before we get to the point where we're using it as fast as we're producing it. But I move it because it's in the way. I don't want to have to space out just to fit a warehouse in. But that warehouse can be moved further and further along the more I have to increase the production of stuff for like plastic. But yeah, I'm not really concentrating on ratios this episode. This is all placed out so that however many chemical plants and the Bob's chemical plants, I can't remember the proper name for it, it's spaced out so that however much production of that product is needed, it can be expanded however much. And I usually leave enough space for an extra belt if there ever needs to be another belt's worth of input put in. And I move it out 1 to get the quartz input on that side, because if there's 4 or 3 inputs and 1 output of any given resource for a production, it's nice to keep 2 on one side and 2 on the other, so inserters aren't having to stretch. Inserters are stretching the minimum distance required. That makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, we get the start of the silicon production laid out. As I did with the plastic, we get attacked here, but I decided to leave it. But yeah, as I did with the plastic, I like to work backwards on these methods. So the end product gets output on the bus first, and I work backwards through the various products needed. I've run out of iron again, so I do finally head north to address this attack and repair a few turrets and bolster the temporary defences, because they're pretty crude. and they do get attacked quite a bit there, but with the rampant AI, they're going to move along. And I also find an underground belt that's been destroyed, which gives me an odd number of underground belts, so I immediately put one on the ground and shoot it, because otherwise it's sacrilege. Carrying around an odd number, can't have that. And I've just checked, I do have an even number again, which is relief. I mean, it's not really that much of a problem. I don't know, it's just a thing I have. It's... Well, there's some people, others don't really care. But yeah, I just can't have it. Because if I leave it... just smack my mic again. But if I leave it too long with an odd number, I then have this rage of trying to work out at least where it's occurred. You know, even if it's not a problem, I like to know where it's occurred. Because once you use all your underground stuff and you haven't got any more to produce, you've got to run around with one on you. And it's just... Yeah, it's not cool, so... I probably should have just put it in a chest so that it works its way into the logistic system later on. But I didn't really think of that. I was too fussed about shooting it straight away. So we head down and realise I could have brought the stone down a little earlier. I did know I needed it, just didn't think about it. The stone is needed for the sodium chloride, I think. I can't remember the name of it. I didn't look it up while recording. But yeah, that other white fluffy stuff that looks like slightly more dense cocaine. I don't know why I keep referencing cocaine. It could be anything. Salt, sugar, anything, you know. It's got a slightly... I'm just going to stop talking about that. But yeah, we notice we start to run out of space to fit in because we need more saltwater electrolysis for this process. I could use the hydrogen chloride from up at the plastic production, but I like to keep this on a separate set of production because late game we need vast amounts of this. This is going to be a large user of stone and water, so if I don't plan that in now, later on I'd have to go and shove in its own production or make the other one stupidly long. So yeah, basically it needs its own line of production, because if we all used it from one saltwater electrolysis production late game, it just wouldn't be enough. So again, we steal some more of that single pump water, which is just ridiculous. We can't have that all coming off one pump, but for now it'll do. So yeah, I'm kind of rushing to get this production done by the end of the episode because I don't want to be working on silicon next episode, and we literally get to the bare minimum of resources I have on me. I have just about enough poles, but I could probably do with one more to place it properly. And we're about to run out of inserter arms, so I decide to run back and go and pick up some more resources. Hopefully enough to finish the construction of the silicon processing area, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a problem if this Bob's sub bus is going to encroach on the Javolite patch, because it is an infinite ore, so it's not like we can just mine it and get rid of it completely. So gonna have to decide what happens there, but looking at the spacing, we should be able to just push straight past it. So we get the last bit of saltwater electrolysis set up. We finally got enough resources, and we've just about fit it in with the track as well. Luckily that track is temporary, and it's not going to be there in the future once we've pushed the biters out some more. That'll come into the Javolite patch in a different way. So then we work our way backwards to the silicon processing, getting the hydrogen chloride set up. Then on to the powder I can't remember the name of. I won't call it cocaine. And we get that passing on to the silicon. I can't remember the name of these. They're silicon something. They're like silicon chips. And then they just get converted into wafer thin silicon plates. And we run out of fast inserters again, so I have to run back yet again and grab a load more iron. Luckily we've got enough iron ore coming through now. We've hooked up those buffers, but next episode that's probably going to be a problem again. And I noticed the solar plate has been probably ruined by the biters, so that had stopped producing. We've also ran out of petroleum gas, so that's another thing I'm going to have to address either in between episodes or next episode, but we'll see. So we finally get the silicon wafer process going. We've got it laid out for 2 belts because I quite easily use 2 belts worth of silicon wafers. I believe they used to be called plates. I don't know. But yeah, we need those for the next level of circuits and ultimately blue science. But that's going to be all we have time for this episode. I do hope you have enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next episode. That was a bit of a shit out, wasn't it? I'm not going to use that one. I'll edit it out. But yeah, thank you for watching. I do hope you have enjoyed, and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.